flowing in their veins. Mackie and Judd on SKOR North and SKORNorth.com.
And the years that the Vikings don't do well, they always have 7 or 8 wins. So backing up to 2014, they were 7-9. Then they get in the playoffs. Blair Walsh missed. Then they were 8-8. Then they get the NFC title game. Then they were 8-7-1. Then they beat the Saints in the playoffs. Last year they were 7 wins. This year they go to the playoffs. It's just math, guys. This is how it happens every year, and I don't know why. But every other year they make the playoffs, and the years they don't, they win 7 or 8 games. Last year, they won 7. What I'm telling you, the Vikings are definitely making the playoffs. That's happening. Sean, it's just physics.
It's physics.
All right. Yeah, Good Morning Football. By the way, Nate Burleson will no longer, I think he's doing a couple more weeks on Good Morning Football when he gets back from like some kind of vacation. But then they gotta find big shoes to fill. That's a great show.
Yep.
And Nate Burleson is headed to the mothership, CBS This Morning.
Good for him.
So I don't know who's going to replace him, but I guess we'll find out. This is Mackie and Judd, daily Minnesota sports entertainment. We just want titles. That's all we want. We're raising the bar, raising our expectations for these Minnesota sports teams. And every Friday, we dive into your comments from the SKOR North YouTube channel, things you've tweeted at us throughout the week. And I know that was a Vikings clip off the top of the show. We'll get to a couple Vikings things. But I want to go Wolves with you here because we have a lot of comments this week about various Wolves things, including this one from, was it Kind? I actually didn't write down who commented, so I'm sorry. I think it's Kind of Reckoning, actually, is what I wrote down. So he says, you trade Anthony Edwards, then you may as well move the team to Seattle because you've lost your fan base. And he's responding to, I would assume, the NBC Sports Philadelphia blog that reacted to Woj saying the Wolves are still persistent on Ben Simmons. And their idea, this is not our idea, their idea was, what if it was Anthony Edwards and Malik Beasley and some other assets for Ben Simmons, to which I think all of us said, I don't know.
Yeah.
Is there any circumstance where you guys would even consider, like, let's say Portland said, hey, we're kind of done dealing with Philadelphia here. We'll give you Dame Lillard, Minnesota, for Anthony Edwards and other things. Like, is there any circumstance in which you would consider trading Anthony Edwards?
I'm not trading. So Dame is 32. Is that what we've talked about? 32?
31, 32, somewhere there. Yeah.
If I trade Ant, I'm not trading for anyone over 30. So if I'm going to trade Ant, I need your best young player back too, and he needs to be in his 20s. And so that would be the only thing that I would do is if you traded me your superstar, which you're probably not going to do, who's, let's say, 27, 28, I'd consider it, but I'm not taking a veteran in his 30s because that gets to be dicey and you don't know, and Ant looks like he could be great. So I would need your superstar who is at least in his 20s back.
Dex, is there any circumstance in which you would trade Anthony Edwards?
I'm kind of with Judd. It's got to be someone like, and I would even go like 25 or under. You know, I don't know, like, I know this is like, no duh, you would do this, but like if I'm getting Devin Booker back, well, then yes, Anthony Edwards is completely on the table. I want that guy on the team as well. But I can't be trading up someone who's just turned, 19, 20. He's still super, super young for someone who is going to be on the wrong side of his 20s like yours truly and entering his 30s. I can't do that.
Yeah, I mean, there's maybe like a small handful of guys. I'm so high on the future of Anthony Edwards and just like the work he's putting in this offseason, his personality, all of the ingredients seem to be there if he stays on the right track and keeps evolving. Like he's going to score 25 plus points a game this year. In his last 30 games last year, he scored, I think, 25 plus points a game and was grabbing rebounds and dishing assists. So I don't think there's like outside of like, hey, there's a falling out with Luka in Dallas, and they just have to make a trade, and you're getting a guy under the age of 25 that's just ridiculous, and he's going to be a cornerstone player. I mean, that's like the only scenario I would ever entertain, but those scenarios don't exist. And I agree with Judd. I would never trade him for someone over the age of 30. Not to mention, I think like the way this is, listen, beggars can't be choosers, but the way that Milwaukee did it, the way that they built it, they drafted Giannis. They developed Giannis. They drafted Middleton in the second round. Like, they built it from within. There's something just more satisfying about the way Milwaukee did it than the way, let's say, the Nets are trying to do it, or
Oh, yeah.
the way the Heat did it. Although the Heat had Dwayne Wade homegrown, so there's that. I think like doing it with someone that you drafted and Karl Anthony Towns that you drafted and building from within. When I say do it, let's start with make the playoffs.
Right, but you're talking about establishing your franchise as being respectable to very good. I also think the thing with Ant that has to be kept in mind from the intangible standpoint, guys, is I don't know why, but he does. Ant has an it factor on and off the court, and as far as what he brings, that we have not seen. In fairness to this franchise, many guys have. KG did for sure back in the day, but think about like what Ant does off the court too. Think about the post game stuff, and you can be like, "Oh, who cares about that?" Well, I do. I care about that. I mean, I watched Andrew Wiggins be a dead ass here as far as personality wise for how long, right? And you're like, dude, look at your talent.
Yeah, he had negative leadership qualities.
And he had negative leadership. And Cat's Cat. And Cat's a great basketball player. But I don't think that Cat has like an it factor as far as personality goes.
No.
Ant's the first guy in a long time here, and I mean that, a long time, to have what seems to be leadership, ability to support his talent with a confidence that doesn't come off as being a cocky jerk. It comes off as, oh, this is very cool. So there's just a lot of things that Ant brings that this franchise desperately, and fan base too, desperately needs.
Yeah. Skolny comments on the SKOR North YouTube channel, where is Phil's Ben Simmons blow-up doll? Yeah, I guess I would like them to trade for Ben Simmons. My blow-up doll popped a couple days ago, so I got to get a new one.
There's nothing I can add to this conversation that's not going to get me in trouble.
Neil Baker comments, Patrick Beverley adds badly needed and necessary winners culture to the Timberwolves, the likes of which this team has not had since Jimmy Butler and Tibbs were driven out by worthless Wiggins and Teddy Bear Towns. D'Lo better change his lazy ways because Beverley has 100 times the heart as D'Lo, and Beverley will not put up with tanking on defense, especially from the second highest paid player on the roster. I guess your thoughts on all of that from Neil Baker, the influence of Beverley and then the shots at D'Lo.
In a good way, I think, if it's done correct, I think it's exactly right. Like, and I'm not saying starting a locker room fight or practice fights or being as psychotic as Butler appeared to be to get what he wanted here, which was either people traded and a new contract or for him to be traded. So, yeah, when this move was made, I compared it to what the Wild did with Bonino and Cole last year. And I stand behind that comp. It's not that the player is going to come in here and be a dominant, great player. It's that the player knows how to win. He's also driven. He also can, if he leads in a positive way, yeah, that's going to rub off on guys. And look, the most important guy who, if you can do it, and again, it has to be a positive way, but with Ant, like if Ant sees that intensity too, that could make him better. So I don't want a guy. The problem with Butler was, and we could talk all we want about it, but Jimmy Butler was an incredibly selfish, great player. He's in this for himself. And he masks that as, I'm the captain of this team, right? I'm the guy that leads this team. What it was I want a contract. I want what I want, but I'm going to act like I'm doing it for the greater good. I never bought that. Beverley sounds like a veteran who might be actually out to try to win games and not just win his own personal battles, which is what I think Butler did.
I want to bring to you guys, too, a quote from Tyronn Lue, coach of the Clippers. This is from talkbasketball.net in February, earlier this year in the regular season. Patrick Beverley is our emotional leader. Just seeing how hard he plays and how hard he competes, he holds guys accountable. Guys are not doing their job. He's the first one to tell them. We definitely need that. I love that. And I think what Neil here in the comment section is referring to is the last time they had someone that would, like Rubio will talk to guys too, and Rubio's a leader, but Rubio's a little bit more, I think, of a passive, not like passive aggressive, but he's more just like, he's got this calmness in his personality. He's not going to really get into you, right? Jimmy Butler will get into you. Kevin Garnett will get into you. And Patrick Beverley will light you up. Draymond Green will light you up. Like, there's guys like that. And I think it remains to be seen how well Karl Anthony Towns, like, will he react favorably to that? Will Anthony Edwards react favorably to that? But like with Towns specifically, it kind of feels like when Butler would do it, he would just kind of go into a shell.
Yep.
And then when he would go into a shell, Butler would get on him even more because why are you being such a wuss? That felt like the dynamic between the two. So some of this is going to be on Karl Anthony Towns, who's now older. He's 25, 26 years old, to just be able to take it and not take it personally and get better from having a guy like Beverley on the team. But we'll see. It could also almost everything blows up in the Wolves' face. The shots at D'Lo, by the way, listen, I'm skeptical of D'Lo as a highly paid max player as well because there are some things that he needs to be more consistent at. But I wouldn't say that he's a lazy player. Like he's a really good offensive player, and he adapted well to the things Chris Finch wanted him to do. So he deserves a shot. JJ comments, it's clear Kaprizov doesn't want to play in Minnesota. He sees that the Wild will be in cap hell for a few years, so he wants to reach free agency as soon as possible to get another big contract that will take him into his mid-30s. He also doesn't want another year of playing with Rask. I'm hoping Guerin can pull off a trade for Dvorak. Your thoughts?
There's a lot to unpack there.
That's a lot to digest and regurgitate back at you, but we will try. Dex, I'll take the first part. You take the Dvorak part.
Okay.
The first part, here's the problem. Kaprizov fired his agent and is represented by the same guy that represented Artemi Panarin, and he saw him get a huge payday. And what 24-year-old kid doesn't want, right? That big, here is a 7-year payday. Does Kaprizov want out of here and not want to play here? I would say it's not fair to say that. We don't know that. What we know is that he wants as much money as he could possibly get right now. He probably wants more than the Wild will pay on a long-term contract. And so he's like, okay, I'll take a shorter term. And the Wild's like, well, no, we're not going to do a three-year contract. So while what the person says is not necessarily incorrect, I don't think it's as easy as just saying he doesn't want to be here. I think he wants everything, which he's a kid. I don't think he gets it. And when an agent comes to you and says, oh, hey kid, fire your current agent. I will get you what you want. And you're like, oh, cool. Thank you.
Yeah. He's
you
just
expect
listening.
him to deliver. So I think he's a little bit more a victim of probably listening to advice that is misguided than just being a selfish kid. And everything I've heard is he's a good kid. Like he's not a jerk. He's not. So I think it's more, he was promised things and now it's like, you know what? You're going to have to wait some. And when you're that age, you don't want to wait. Dex on Dvorak.
Dvorak's a nice player. Last year, he had a pretty good year. His points and shots and everything was pretty much lined up to where he's been the last few seasons in Arizona. He's got a reasonable contract. He's under for $4.5 million for the next 4 seasons. That's pretty damn good for a guy that's probably going to average 20 goals and also win some faceoffs for you, which this team was horrible at last season. But Arizona, I believe, was reportedly asking for a first-round pick plus top prospect. And Dvorak's a nice center, but on any good team, he's probably a 2. He'd be the de facto 1 on this team because this team is lacking true number 1 centers. But I would, if it's first-round pick and top prospects, I'm going back to Thomas Hertl. I'm going back to Jack Eichel. I'm going back to that well. If I can get Christian Dvorak for a more reasonable price, I'm all in on that, and he'd be a good center to get. But if Arizona is being pretty hard font on, hey, we need a first-round pick and top prospects, I can't do that for you. But he would be a nice center. He would be a good player for the Wild.
Eric Nelson chimes in here on the SKOR North YouTube channel. Click that subscribe button if you want daily Minnesota sports entertainment. Give me a freaking break. You guys were all about Jake Browning because he had one practice by himself, and you were basically naming him the MVP. I think he's referring to the fact that earlier this week, Judd, okay, you're lumping all of us in here. Judd is out on Jake Browning.
I said he can't start, yeah.
I'm not out on Jake Browning. Well, no, you said he can't back up.
Right, well, yes. He can't back up because if he has to start, it's Armageddon.
And I'm saying, I want to see him this weekend. We'll see what happens. People are raving about his leadership. I want to see him this weekend.
So what's Jake's point, though? Like, so he thinks
he's saying you're a hypocrite because 2 weeks ago you were all about Jake Browning, and now you're out on Jake Browning.
I respect what he did. What he did in having to step in for Kirk and throw
you're
every
a flip-flopper. You're like John Kerry. You're a flip-flopper.
I can admire a person's character without admiring their talents.
Okay.
That's what it comes down to.
Nick Z comment on Twitter says, for Feedback Friday, can we please get more takes from the Bachelorette series?
Oh.
I don't think you and I have dove deep into the finale of
we have not
the last couple of weeks here. I mean, you've been defending manipulative, insecure, codependent Greg for the last 3 weeks.
That's an interesting way to put it, because when someone is saying she's gaslighting you, I kind of interpreted it as Katie was gaslighting Greg in that entire situation. Now, Greg was flawed. Greg was also flawed with how he did.
Dude.
Greg is not a no. I respect the hell out of Greg for putting it out there, and I thought it was very admirable. Her going with Blake is the definition of settling. That was the definition of a settle. Listen, really was on Team Greg on this.
Blake is a Canadian moose, man. Blake is brawny. He's strong. He's in touch with his emotions. He's funny. Like, Greg has one gear. I'm going to be sad. I want you to fill holes in my life because I'm so sad all the time. And this is the happiest I've been because of you. Sorry, Greg. I got to be done with Greg.
I don't know, man. I get that he definitely has still some trauma going on with his dad dying, and there's still stuff there that he has to address most likely.
He should go deal with that before dragging someone else into it.
And he should, but when someone says, I love you, and you say, I like looking back at your face, like, what the hell, dude? And then
maybe she's not that
and then
into
also, but then she tells Blake, I love you, the next episode? Yeah. BS, dude. My opinion of her changed so quickly in such a short period amount of time. I'm out on Katie Thurston. I'm in it on a new Katie, but I'm out on Katie Thurston. I'm out. I'm absolutely out.
I think Declan is overreacting to this. I think, but not to mention, Greg went on a podcast. I want to say like last week with Nick Vile, and basically said, "Yeah, I watched the whole thing back, and I was a total clown. Like, I regret everything I said on that episode." So, even Greg thinks Greg is a clown. Judd, what are your thoughts, Judd?
Excuse me, guys. What?
Judd's ordering his next 12-pack of Surly to get picked up here in an hour and a half at his local liquor store.
I'm texting Surly sponsorship people.
I'm really excited for next week's Feedback Friday to include a bunch of comments saying, "Why don't you turn in your man cards? Why are you guys talking about The Bachelor?" You probably have a point.
You guys go right ahead. I am enjoying myself right now. There is no go. Fight about it.
We're done because we got to get to the return of action